I am so excited because we have finally see can house B Series blade servers, either half rack width or full rack width blade servers. So we'll focus on the blade servers themselves and talk about those. And then finally, we'll go ahead and we'll look at the mezzanine cards. These mezzanine cards are network interface cards that we can install inside our B Series servers. So lots to discuss in this action-packed nugget. Now, before we really dig in here, I want to paint you an overall view of this equipment that we are talking about. So here is a B Series chassis. Notice inside that B Series server blade chassis, I have some half-width servers. Particularly, we can see two half-width B Series servers in the chassis. Notice I also have three full width B Series servers. You can mix and match the B Series servers from Cisco in that B Series chassis. Now, we won't really get into great detail about in this nugget. So we connect the overall chassis via IOMs to the fabric interconnects. And then notice what happens. The fabric interconnects go ahead and connect northbound to whatever equipment that we're dealing with. I drew in a couple of Nexus 2Ks here, but understand there's a wide variety of devices that we could connect to northbound. We could connect to 5Ks directly, 7Ks directly. We could connect to MDS equipment directly. And that's because there is tremendous flexibility in this particular design. Notice that we said there's input-output modules, and these input-output modules will allow us to go ahead and have variability in these types of ports, and there's tremendous variability we can introduce in the fabric interconnect ports. We can have Ethernet ports, we can have native fiber channel ports, we can have fiber channel over Ethernet ports. The fabric interconnects are indeed designed from the ground up for tremendous flexibility. So here we meet the UCS 6120XP Fabric Interconnect. You know where this sits in that UCS system, right? Based on our overview, it's that box that's going to sit above the B Series chassis, for example, and provide that real flexible connectivity to the northbound devices. Now, how did this particular device get its name? Well, the 6120 is named after the interconnect really helps us not only with flexibility, but with scalability, supporting up to 160 servers, or if we're in the B Series type environment, we could connect up to 20 B Series chassis to this device. Truly remarkable scalability. Now, with all the fabric interconnects I'm going to cover with you, please realize that they are most often implemented when our budget can accommodate it in a redundant pair. So we would have literally what we call fabric interconnect A and fabric interconnect B. These redundant fabric interconnects would connect down to our B Series chassis with its server blades inserted. So we often have tremendous redundancy with these particular fabric interconnects. By the way, let me tell you one overall fact too about them that I want you to be aware of. The fabric interconnect is what will run your UCS management software. So it is indeed this device that's going to house the graphical user interface that you can utilize to manage all of your UCS equipment. Now, perhaps your data center is so big and robust, the scalability of the 6120 isn't enough. Well, in that case, we have the 6140 depicted here. Notice this device is indeed going to take up more space in your environment as it is 2 rack units in size. Notice the 6140 name tells us that we have 40 fixed ports in this particular device. These ports, as you know, can function as 10 gigabit Ethernet ports or fiber channel over Ethernet ports. In the 6140, we series fabric interconnects. They have indeed invented second generation fabric interconnects that I'd like to show you right now. Let's take a look at the 6248 UP. This is a second generation fabric interconnect as evidenced by the 2 in the 6248. How many ports does this particular device have? 48 ports. 32 of those ports are fixed, and 16 of these ports are available thanks to an expansion slot module. In fact, let me zoom in here so you can see that expansion slot module off to the right-hand side. Let me point it out with my marker. So there you go. There's the expansion slot sitting right next to those 32 fixed ports in this particular 6248 UP. Now, for their second generation devices, there is an added scalability model. Let's go ahead and take a look at it right now. So I'm going to go in and show you the 6296 UP. So we're going to remove that fabric interconnect from atop the chassis, and we're going to drop in the 62. Once again, you'd be able to easily detect what type of device you're dealing with thanks to the name, right? So here is our 6296. We know this is a second generation fabric interconnect, and we know a total support of 96 ports. Some of those will be fixed, and some of those are available thanks to expansion modules. In this particular case, 48 of them, as I described, are indeed fixed. Now, while we're here, let's go ahead and focus on the B Series chassis itself. Here we can see, beneath our fabric interconnect, we can see the 5108 B Series blade server chassis. Yeah, a very impressive chassis for our blade servers. Let's take a look at some of the features. First of all, devices in the top two slots, and we can see full width devices in the bottom two slots. Something else that's great to know is we have 4 single-phase hot swappable power supplies that are part of this chassis. So plenty of hot swappable power for both combined and redundancy type power modes. Let's spin this particular device. Swappable fans in the chassis. Now, another great component of this device that we don't really see, obviously, is the back plane that's inside the chassis. We know we'll have B Series devices with their mezzanine cards that will connect to the very powerful back plane of the UCS chassis in order to give excellent throughput through the overall chassis system. Now, before we move on and we talk about the B Series devices themselves, I want to back up for a moment, though, and cover one little detail about the first generation of fabric interconnects that I want you to be aware of for certification. On the 6120 and the 6140, remember those first generation fabric interconnects? On the fixed ports, right? On the fixed ports, one has 20 fixed ports and the other has 40 fixed ports. Well, on those fixed ports, we can have them operate as 1 gig or 10 gig, but it's only on a certain number of the ports. For example, on the 6120, it's ports 1 through 8 that can be converted to 1 gig or 10 gig, depending on the particular small form factor pluggable module. Let's take a look at a UCS B200M3. So we're going to go ahead and find this particular B Series device. Here it is. Let's remove this device and take a peek at it from the particular chassis. both machines. Here we can see two Intel Xeon processors. E5 2600 product families can be supported here to deliver up to 80% higher performance than their predecessors. Obviously, this is hugely important, again, in a virtualized world where we want to give these particular virtual machines running in this environment plenty of CPU and plenty of RAM. And as you might guess, the innovation and the horsepower just continues to increase as you look at these various blade servers. For instance, let's go ahead and pull out the UCS B420 M3 from the chassis. So we'll put this little B Series device back together, we'll insert it back in the chassis, and we'll slide out one of our other particular B Series ports can we do it with? We could look that fact up on Cisco's website. Again, I apologize for Cisco for this. Sometimes the exam authors will get a little carried away with detailed questions about hardware that we really, in the real world, would just look up anyways. From an exam strategy point, I would just tell you, look, if you get a question like this and you are not prepared for it because you did not memorize the specs in the hardware catalog, have no fear. That one question shouldn't fail you because you're going to be getting so many of the other questions correct. So many of the other questions are going to be so easy for you based on our course that you really don't let a question like this shake your confidence. Just give it your best guess from recollection and move on to get other much simpler questions. So what a fun nugget. We took a tour of our fabric interconnects in the B series. We saw both the first generation nugget has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.